Welcome back, everyone, to the Stay Introverted podcast. I am your co-host, Jay Coleman.
And I'm your other co-host, Steph.
And as always, we want to start off by just saying thank you to our wonderful podcast listeners for joining us or being part of this podcasting journey with Steph and I. We appreciate it.
We do appreciate it. It's been almost 35 episodes so far, which is pretty wild.
Seriously. You know, I read somewhere where like the majority of folks, like 90% of podcasters don't get past like episode 10 or something.
Wow. So we're killing it. We did 3x that number. So we're probably in the top 1%.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an A, you know.
Yeah, we get an A. But speaking of A's, and this is the worst segue ever, I'm just going to forget that one. We have a guest today.
I can save it. So keep going with
Thank you. Please do. I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, speaking of A, we have a guest. There you go.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. What were you going to say, Mark?
My middle name is Alton. So it's Marc Alton Bedinghaus. So
okay,
the A applies. We knew that. Right. We talked about it ahead of time.
And we just made some podcast history by having our guest announce himself. So what?
Love it.
My family would probably say, "Yep, that sounds about right."
But the best part is we didn't right before we hit record. We were like trying to check if we could figure out his last name, and then we just ended up making him say it anyway. So
it's what we call a happy accident.
Exactly. I love happy accidents.
Or was it on purpose? You'll never know.
Exactly.
I keep wanting to do a little thing called Happy Accidents with my podcast. It's a music-based podcast, and I do a lot of production on it. And so but it's so fun. I get so excited like I'm a kid again at these weird little things. How if something just happens I know where I want to cue a piece of music, and then we start talking, and it just happens to like kick into the chorus, like right when somebody's making a good point, you know, all those little happy accidents that happen along the way when you're editing. It's so satisfying. It feels so good. I'm like, yes. I wonder if it's subconscious though, you know, like I wonder if somewhere in my brain, it kind of knows, okay, I know how long this is going to be. So this song would be a good one to pull in. I don't know. I think about that sometimes, like what makes us choose the paths we choose, right?
Right. Are we doing it consciously, subconsciously? Is there like some like invisible man or woman pulling the strings that we don't know about? Or is it a happy accident?
Exactly. That's what life is, a happy accident. That's perfect.
Exactly. So Mark, you have a podcast which I have had the pleasure of listening to. But what else? Tell us a little bit about the podcast, how it came about, and then also a little bit about your history as a musician.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So they obviously are intertwined. They go hand in hand. I come from a family of musicians. I've got 3 older brothers, but I call it our inner circle because in East Texas where I grew up, there was just this really cool like 6 degrees of musicians that was just a hotbed of a lot of talent that came out of this little East Texas town. It just happened to be, you know, things go in waves like that. And I was the youngest.
A happy accident.
Yeah, totally. And I was the youngest, kind of looking up. So I was like in awe of them, you know, a lot of the time, like, oh, you know, these guys are so cool, but they were my family. And so I was bred into it. Like, I mean, I've got pictures of me, you know, as a little boy with the guitar on and putting concerts on and all that kind of stuff. And so I've done music for years and years. Fast forward, and you know, one of my brothers, I've played in bands pretty much with all of them, but one of them I've had the pleasure of kind of having an original band with. So we, you know, put out a couple albums. It's called Core Factors, the band name, and got to do some regional touring, like right on the verge of us. It's the same kind of story for every musician. It's like, God, you were just so close, you know, like, that when there was a couple of labels like Universal and Wind Up and stuff that were shopping in Dallas and signed a couple of friends of ours like Element 80 or Bowling for Soup. Bowling for Soup actually did the is it Phineas and Ferb intro? It's like a punk kind of intro.
Yeah.
One of
Oh,
those kids
yeah.
shows.
I've never heard of Going Pursuit. I've never heard
Yeah.
of them.
High
Yeah.
school never ends.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally them. I mean, they were great to us. They kind of took us under their wing. We gigged with them a lot, and so we owe a lot to them. But anyway, my point is that, you know, I got to do that. And it was really fun for a lot of years, but I've got a lower back injury that made it difficult the entire time because I hurt it back in high school, but I've kind of fought through it just to do it for so long. But then it got worse and worse to where I was like, okay, maybe I'll just do like 2-man acoustic stuff and take it easy. And then that got difficult. And I was like, well, damn it, what am I going to do? And so I took about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, a break kind of away from all of it. Not really, you know, I listened to music, but not in any projects, not writing, not doing anything, and kind of had to go through a grieving process, almost, you know, just like any kind of loss, significant loss you have in your life. We don't think about like our ways of life, you know, when those change, it's the same kind of loss of, you know, losing a child or a pet or whatever. And so it took me a while. Like I went into a pretty dark place for a while, just like, you know, who am I now if I'm not this? You know, how do I identify with myself if I can't do those kinds of things anymore? And how am I going to derive, you know, happiness out of life and all these things? And I happened to get into a relationship about that time. And so that definitely steered me to not concentrate on those things in good and bad ways, but in a good way that I had that there to, you know, I had her there to kind of process, you know, through that, which probably wasn't very fun for her, but hey, it's nice whenever you're trying to work on yourself to have someone else there. But I noticed, I finally came to the realization that no matter what it is, I'm just always in a better head space if I'm creating. I need to be creating something. And, you know, I've written poetry, I've done those kinds of things, but I was trying to figure out how to kind of bring it back to music. And a coworker of mine who has gone on to do some pretty cool things, his name's Julian Placino. He had a podcast called The Pathways to Success. We used to work together, and when he started it, and he would go around and interview like CEOs and kind of big time technology executives and stuff like that, and kind of made a really good name for himself. But he was really good at like just charismatic speaking. That was his thing, right? So it didn't really matter what he was doing; he's going to be good at it if he was being able to speak. And watching him kind of go through that process of the podcast and kind of helping him with some things from an audio perspective and seeing what he did with it. You know, my ex and I at the time would still have these deep philosophical conversations around music. And, you know, we were kind of like, well, why don't we try this podcast thing out? And it's ended up being the best thing for me to be able to stay connected to the music industry, to be able to be creative in the production of the shows and editing and all those kinds of things. Has really just been wonderful for my headspace to be able to kind of know that I'm doing a thing again. I've got my thing that I'm doing that's unique and that kind of thing. And then the last thing, I'll shut up about my journey, but the other piece of it was that a few years ago, my father got Alzheimer's and dementia. And we had to take care of him for a while. Not a path that's for the faint of heart. It is ridiculously, oh my God, it is just the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. You know, to talk to somebody that you love, that doesn't know you anymore or thinks ill of you and those kinds of things is heartbreaking. But going through that and watching, he always had really cool stories all the time. Like he would captivate me and my friends with those cool stories. And I used to say I was going to go down, record his stories so we could capture it. Didn't do it. Now he's gone. He couldn't remember him even if I wanted to before he died. And that's something we take for granted. We always think we're going to have these memories. And I thought, what a cool way to kind of capture mine and my inner circle, that music community's kind of story, all of our stories and our history in this audio scrapbooking form. So it was kind of all those things kind of melded into it, and it's been awesome. It's been great.
Okay, you and I, now that you're saying this, you and I had a conversation about this on Threads.
Did we? I think we did.
My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and it was like 10, 11, maybe 12 years. It was horrible.
Yeah.
So I feel for you. It obviously wasn't my mom, or it was my dad's mom. But watching my aunts and uncles and my dad take care of her was just absolutely brutal. So I'm so sorry that you experienced that. It's like you said, it's not for the faint of heart. But
yeah.
I'm glad that
I appreciate that.
are at least doing this. It's like a homage in a way to your dad.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not him telling the stories, or have you been able to like sort of tell his stories, like what you remember?
Yep. Yeah, my brother Brett, I have him on quite a bit. He's the brother that I played in the bands with the most. He's a drummer, and luckily he's the memory guy. Like I can't remember. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. And that's also kind of why I wanted to do something like this, because I just can't recall that kind of stuff. Speaking of recall, but he can. He remembers all that, dates, names, people. So he's great to have on to be able to kind of help me remember them.
That's awesome. I also love that you touched on the fact that, like, even though you had to let go of your music persona in a way, you were able to sort of repurpose it and reclaim it for yourself in a completely unexpected way. So that is super cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It has been a unique way to kind of do that. And also I still like, because it's all just in the computer and it's easy, I still write little pieces for each episode, like little songs here and there that are just kind of used as score, so like just little electronic pieces or whatever. So it kind of scratches the itch enough, to make me still feel like, hey, I'm still creating, even though it's not. And it's kind of freeing in a way, because before it was always like, okay, you gotta, it becomes a job, when you're trying to do it at that level, and it's like, okay, you got to try to make people happy and just what all you're going to do. And this time it's a little bit more where I can just do my thing and have fun with it and not worry about that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool.
I love that.
Awesome. Mark, you mentioned that, even when you were going through your darkest sometimes, you were fortunate to be able to still find a way to, express yourself, express your creativity and to be creative. How vital, it is just being able to have a space where you can still kind of be creative and allow that creativity to shine. How important is that?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you could point to a lot of things, but the more and more I thought about it, I'm like, it's up there with like eat, sleep, love, and create. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's funny because I think there's a few reasons why that happens too. One being that, nowadays I practice Zen Buddhism, and I meditate a lot. I do those kinds of things. I didn't when I was younger. I had feelings towards that, but I didn't ever really. I guess I did in ways, right? We all do, but not sitting down to really actually for the purpose of meditating. So now I can do those things, but I think hobbies or being creative, any of those, sports is the same way, or anything that people do like that helps you get it. Jay and I were talking before we press record about his artwork in the background, and how I thought that was so cool that he does that, because if nothing else, when we are doing something creative in that moment, we're not thinking about other things. We can turn it off. It's a form of meditation. You're meditating on a particular thing, but you're still getting in that state to where, time goes by, you don't realize it. You're kind of outside of yourself. You don't feel your aches and pains as much. You realize, oh, I haven't thought, for the last 2 hours, I didn't think about my ex that I've been missing, or all those little things, they kind of go away when you can focus on something for a minute. And so And I think that's probably one reason why even podcasting has gotten so big too, because people, number one, I mean, it helps people connect, but just being able to kind of be in that space for a minute where we don't get to do that as much as adults. I feel like, just kind of play for a little bit in a sense. You know what I mean? Alan Watts talks about that a lot. Are y'all familiar with Alan Watts at all? He's a philosopher. He came over. You've probably seen him around, well, I mean, he's not alive now, but, seen audio clips around or presentations or whatever. But he was big in the 60s of like bringing kind of Eastern ways of thought to America. He was British, but he came over to America and would go around just touring around giving these talks about Eastern, ways of belief and trying to just educate people, because people didn't, especially in America, where they were not very well educated about other ways of life. Right. And so he talks about that a lot, though, about it being for play. You play the guitar, you don't, job the guitar, work the guitar or whatever. Right. Like these things are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to have, even if you can get pretty dark sometimes and process stuff maybe in it, but at the same time, you're still ultimately having fun. That's the way I look at it anyway.
Absolutely. I was actually just reading, it wasn't this person, but I was just reading a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I'm almost done with it. And throughout the book, he talks a lot about like how creativity is like absolutely crucial when it comes to overcoming trauma, because the right side of your brain, which is like the creative side, I believe. I always get it mixed up, but I think left is like the logical side and like the right side is the creative side. And so when you're traumatized, your creative side of the brain actually hijacks your ability to like process life and just like, speak and just function normally. And so activating that creative side is a really good way to heal and empower yourself to go out and function in the real world. I thought that was absolutely fascinating.
That's awesome.
Because it almost like removes that like that negative hold that your brain is taking, and it turns it into a positive by going down that creative route.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you think about it too, it's kind of like, I mean, we do the same thing with our bodies when we're trying to heal or get better. It's like you gotta stretch, you gotta move around. Exactly. If it stays stagnant, things are gonna rot. And so, same thing with our brain. You got to exercise it and get the neurons firing off a little bit. So that it can come back to a good shape. Exercise it a little bit. Yeah, and what's cool too, so you're going to send me that link. I definitely want to read that one. There was another one called Your Brain on Music, and it was fascinating. It does get pretty deep sometimes, but the whole thing is kind of about understanding music and its effect on our brain and that kind of thing. But one of the things he talks about in there is how music is one of the only things that activates both sides as well. Like, there's not really a part of your brain that music doesn't touch, which I find fascinating. It's kind of an interesting concept that's,
Is that like a book that somebody who's not a musician would enjoy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there will be parts that maybe get a little bit too deep and you can just skip those pages, but he does a real good job of kind of approaching it from that level to set the stage on like what this means, what he's talking about. He doesn't just jump into some deep topic. He's really good about that, because even me as a musician, like my oldest brother John, like he went to school for guitar, like at Musicians Institute in California, and he knows that kind of stuff. I'm much more of like, I play with passion in my ear. Like, I mean, I know some stuff, but I'm not that. I don't know music theory, so I appreciated that as well because he lays it out real well.
I was going to ask, are you self-taught or kind of classically trained as far as being a musician?
Yeah. It's weird. It's definitely not classically trained, but I did have help big time because of my family. Like, we're pretty far apart. So like, it's me and then there's 6 years and then there's 1 year. So there's 2 in the middle, and then there's like another 6 or 7 years to my oldest brother. So it's like I wasn't close enough in age to learn things as they learned them, but I wasn't that far behind and had them to learn from, to a certain extent, even though I did do a lot of it myself. I can't ever overlook that because they helped point me in the right direction a lot of times, but it always kind of stopped at that. And then I was like, okay, just give me enough to be dangerous. And I always wanted to I like variety. So I just wanted to know how to play lots of instruments. And you can't really, I guess if you're just one of those people that's a guru, you can, but a lot of times you can't be a master at all those things. It's very difficult.
So what is your go-to is guitar side?
It's piano, but I probably pick up the guitar more because I don't have an actual piano right now. So, and I just don't sit down at the keyboard as much, but it's my favorite to play.
Okay.
I'm not a pianist. I'm not like great at it, but yeah, guitar has been the thing over the years. Bass is really actually what I enjoy, just like physically as an instrument playing. Like, I guess I've always been much more groove oriented, so like that it sits well with me. I can kind of get into a vibe with that. But yeah, so a little bit of everything, but probably play the guitar the most.
So growing up, how many people were in your household growing up?
So 6 of us all together, but my oldest brother, by the time I was like, 10 or 11, he was out in California, so he was kind of away a lot. But for a lot of it, there was 6 of us all total with my parents there. So it was my mom had 6 kids in her family. My dad had 3 other brothers, so we mimicked them. We also, it's 4 and 4. So it's just kind of what I thought was, normal is a kind of a big family kind of thing. And it goes, and the music thing it came before too with our grandparents and that kind of thing. But yeah, it is interesting just how much I think we're probably born with some type of consciousness, soul that has some things in it that it likes to do and is pretty good at or whatever. But man, our surroundings do make such a huge difference. Even like, it was funny because my ex and I, one of the things that we would argue about, and of course I feel like I'm right on this thing, but it was just when we would approach something, you could see that she was like the oldest. There was only 2 of them. She had 1 younger brother. Their dad had died when she was pretty young, like 15. And so like her world was way different that way, where my mom passed away when she was 60, but that's way different than 15, right? Like I had my parents, I had my brothers, I was the youngest. And so it was a big family. Like you had to kind of be good at debating or you wouldn't get anything done. Like, you gotta try to hold your own with all these other people and get a word in. And so we would just talk passionately, but it was never like all right, I'm mad at you now. Mm-hmm. Like you just went away, you had a sandwich, you came back and talked about something else or whatever. Right. So it's interesting to see how those things play a part.
You can definitely see, yeah, I'm an only child, so having to, or rather the thought of the back and forth, probably, yeah, that's kind of, but it's just like I'm.
It is, yeah, that is.
Yeah, like I'm good for a good like 5 sentences, but it's like, wait a minute, this sustained this sustained give and take back, like what
yeah, we already said what we were here to say. Now we're going on something else.
Like I need this to end. Like what's going on? Like
it's so funny how often I'll be like in an interaction with somebody and they're like, like within minutes, they're like, "You're the oldest, aren't you?" I'm like, "Is it really that obvious?"
I mean, things come out.
Yeah, I guess it. I never really paid attention to it until like the last couple years, like, but I apparently definitely come off as like the oldest child, and then my husband definitely comes off as like a middle child. So but the middle child, but the oldest in his household because his older brothers and sisters are like 20 years older. So,
Yeah.
it's like that's an interesting dynamic too.
I always do this. I say I'm an only child. But I need to be clear. I'm my mom's only child, so I have like other like half siblings. So I guess
Yeah. Okay. So it's Sean.
yeah. I guess I would be towards the youngest then of my dad's children, but I still have that only child kind of attitude.
Well, it's about the household you grew up in, I guess.
Cause I pretty much grew up with my mom, and it was just her and I.
Right.
So like having or being around, just a bunch of people and having to interact with a bunch of people, even when you're not feeling up to it, not really a thing. So hats off to people who were able to do that, particularly people growing up as an introvert. I don't know if I'd be able to do it. Like I just would not come out of my room ever.
Yeah, right. Which is interesting because I definitely am an introvert, but it's like within, which is why I try to say, because a lot of people hear that term introvert and think that means shy, and it can, but it's not a blanket thing that all introverts are shy. It doesn't work like that, right? And because I know for me, I mean, so much of it, what you're talking about, Jay, is like an energy thing for me, where I can do that around my brothers and my family. But if that was, now you just replace that with 7 people that I don't know super well, I'm going to be so freaking exhausted by the end of that conversation. So it's a way, and it's just an energy thing. Like for some reason, it takes a lot out of me. Even because we would play shows, and I'm very outgoing, and when you're on stage, it's one thing, but then once the show is over, people would want to come up and talk, and I'm like, okay, but can I have like a minute because I need to, get my energy in order, and exactly, take a minute.
I think one thing, something that I really just kind of began to realize within the last year. Introverts, even if we don't really realize it, we're good at kind of creating our own little safe space. And that safe space can include other people, growing. It can, like kind of how you said, Mark, you're, much more comfortable, interacting and talking with your siblings, or even even comfortable to an extent getting up in front of people and performing, because that's your safe space, and it can be for a variety of reasons. There's people it's an outlet for creativity. It's kind of a source of positive reinforcement. But like once you're out of that space, it's like nah. I mean, it's just small talk. I'm not dealing with. I don't want to deal with anybody else, but. It's just there's something that I realized within last year, because there are people that I can talk to for hours. There are places that I can go where I'm comfortable, even if I don't know people. I feel like I'm much more in my element than other places. Mm-hmm. And I would wonder, like, why is that? Why can I talk here and not here? Like, what is it? What's going on here? But I just think I think we're very good at kind of just creating our own little bubble, our own little safe space, and I don't even know half the time if we're even aware of it.
No, it's interesting because like I feel like in certain situations when I'm talking about certain topics or like certain like just passions of mine, I don't shut the fuck up, and it's like people are like, "Did this girl have an off button?"
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I do. Like, if you were to talk to me about like sports, like, you're not going to hear me talk because I don't know anything about it, and it would take me so much energy just to like wrap my head around like a single concept of football. Like I just shut
Right.
down. But like you get me talking about like music or like podcasting or whatever, something that I care about, Frenchies. Like this girl doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So it is interesting when you know a lot of information, it doesn't take all that much energy to like just express it and say it and put it out there. So that is really fascinating.
I wonder if there's something to do with expectation. You know what I mean? Like,
What do you mean?
like that somebody who's introverted, that if they know what to expect, then they don't spend so much energy wondering what's going to happen next, so they don't
what's going to come out of my mouth, what are they going to think of me. It's
so,
like
so if
I
you're
know
either
my shit.
yeah, exactly, you either are comfortable with the people or you're really comfortable with what you're talking about because you know about it, like those kinds of things. You know what to expect, you know what the I don't know, that's the first time I've really thought about that.
I
it's kind of
think there's
interesting
something to that. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have to worry about if you're not worried about how something's going to go down, like you said, if you don't have to worry about knowing what you're talking about, who you're talking to, those sorts of things, you know, you don't. There's minimal unknown, and I think a lot of times, you know, we overthink, or you know, a big reason that we kind of get drained or pre-drained is because we're worrying about that unknown. Whereas if you kind of take that unknown out, what is there to worry about?
Yeah.
Actually. Ooh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I would, if you figure out how to do it though, well, let me know, because I mean that's the trick, right? Like,
I don't.
It's true. I mean, it does. It
I
just
don't know.
weighs you
I don't
down,
know how to turn it on and off yet. Like I haven't figured that part out.
Yeah. I know. I wish I could, because you're right. You're
just
totally
look up
right.
and be like, "Damn,
I have a theory.
I'm for 5 hours." I'm like, "How the fuck did I do that?"
Yeah. No, I have a theory, and I think it actually ties into what we were saying earlier about how like creativity is like super healing and like helpful. So I'm just thinking, like the first thing that's coming to mind right now is like when you said overthinking, like the light bulb just went off. So I was in a job at work. So I've been at the same company for like 10 years almost. I interned there in college, and I'm still there, whatever. But my first role at this company and then my second role at this company, both were so exhausting. And I liked the people that I worked with. I guess I thought I liked what I did because I didn't really know anything else. But they were so draining. And I was so, like, 40 hours a week felt like 90 hours a week sometimes. And 90 hours, the times when I was working 90 hours a week, I felt like I was going to die. Like, but it was because they were very knowledge based, and I felt like I had to just use my brain so much, like that by the time I got done with what I was doing, like I had like my brain was a dumpster fire 24/7, and I couldn't function. But now I'm in a role that's like much more me, and it's like not really analytical at all. It's skills. It's skills and intuition based rather than knowledge based. And I'm thriving. You ask me, okay, like this is the problem. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and it takes me like 30 seconds to figure it out and execute because it's my skill set. Whereas when you were forcing me to think and use my brain and like just constantly analyze spreadsheets and shit, I was a lost little puppy. So that's I don't know where that's going.
Well, I can completely relate to it though, because I was the same way. Like I'm in talent acquisition, and when I first started, so my brother Brett that I mentioned that plays drums in the bands, I kind of have him to thank or blame, I don't know, for a lot of things in my life. Like he was always a really cool supporter, and I really appreciate that about him. But he got me into recruiting. He was doing it, and I needed a job, and he helped me get hired at his company. But so I don't know if y'all know anything about recruiting, but there's like two different kinds. Basically, there's staffing recruiting, which is you're a company and then other companies hire you to go find people for them that they need, right? So you don't work for them. You're just trying to connect the dots for people, and you make money off of it if you do, right? Because they've agreed to pay however much money if we help find this person.
Kind of like,
and then there's
Robert Half would be like an example. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's their one. And then there's like, which is kind of more like recruiting, and then talent acquisition is a little, the way I view it anyway, is a little bit more in-house. So you're the in-house specialist recruiter for the company. You might go work with staffing firms every once in a while if you don't have the bandwidth to handle stuff, but otherwise you're the person, you have to go find everybody, right? Or your team does, or whatever the situation is. And so when I first started out and I was on the staffing side and I had to deal with so many more unknowns, I was new to it. I was working with people, new people. I didn't know them. I mean, I did know my brother and helped, but to your point, Steph, like all those things were unknowns, and I wanted to die at the end of every time I went home. I was just so exhausted, couldn't deal with anything else mentally at all. But fast forward, and now, yes, I am doing more. I'm in-house at a company. So it is different. There's less unknowns. I can control the situation better, even though I can't control the outcome. But I also have been doing it for a lot of years now. So now I don't have to think about any of that stuff. It just comes, second nature. I'm good at my job. So now, I mean, if I have to have a bunch of conversations in a row, I'm still going to get my energy drained. But overall, though, it's not like just from doing my job, I'm like that anymore. Like you said, it's a completely different situation.
Right. Well, it sounds like. Oh, sorry. Go on. I was just gonna say, it sounds like you're no longer having to constantly figure out what each new company that's looking for new talent is looking for. So that's like half your job right there. It's like you already know the vibe.
Exactly.
So all you have to do is find people that fit the vibe, rather than having to learn the vibe every other day.
Yes.
And then
well
fit
said.
the vibe. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Plus, I don't feel like I'm good at, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say I'm not good at fitting the vibe. I'm good at mimicking it. I can do that.
Right. Yeah. So that's
can't
why
change
it works.
who I am very easily.
Right.
Exhausting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I have a good point. I have a quick question about something you said earlier, Mark, but I just wanted to say, Steph, I think you're definitely right, particularly about situations where you have to analyze. Like I hate analytics. I hate analytical type jobs where that's like 90% of what you're doing. I think I can do it. I can analyze things. I just hate it when that's the job, because I'll do it, but don't ask me to do anything else, because my brain is just after that. I like being able to, just not just looking at a set of data, but being able to make a decision, being able to create, kind of how you said, being able to take this and do something with it. I think that's what really kind of gets me going. It kind of tied to that, Mark, you mentioned something about being or having a level of control, and I find in the jobs that I've had, there is a certain level of control that I need in order to not just to do my job, but just to to function, to feel like I'm doing my job right, to feel like I'm in control of things. So I wanted to ask really a question for both of you. Do you think introverts are control freaks, or do we just do we maybe not control freaks, but do you think we have we like control a lot, I guess is the question.
You want me to go first? Or you want to?
Yeah, go for it.
So I think I was a control freak. I used to need to control the shit out of every situation 24/7. And I think a big part of my healing journey, and a really big part of stepping into myself and just actually liking who I am and liking my life and all the things I have going on has been all about letting go of control. And now I feel like by letting go of control, I almost somehow have more control than I had before, but I don't really need it. But it's okay. You know what it is I control myself and I control like what's going on within me, but I have no need anymore to try to control the situation or try to control things outside of me. Like, shit happens, whatever. All I can control is how I feel about it and how I react to it and how I talk about it. And I think because of that, I have more control, even though I have like, I'm not trying to control what's going on outside of me.
Yeah, you have less individual control over the individual things, but more control over how it affects you overall. Yeah. So first short answer is fuck yeah, I'm a control freak. Like everybody in the band that's played in bands with me or done sports with me will probably agree with you. Like or agree with me. Like I definitely do. Like and not necessarily always in control in in the negative sense of the word, but just like you were talking about with having the surroundings too. Like that's one thing. That's one reason why I kind of did seek out the Zen Buddhism thing, is that I needed it to help, get into that state that you're in now, Steph. Try to get more in that frame of mind of not being able to control every piece of it, because it definitely can get very overwhelming when you start thinking about all the possibilities and trying to wrangle all those and know what to expect. Yeah, I think that's one reason why too that I derive joy out of doing the podcast, because it's forced interaction, but with a specific kind of topic in mind, right? So it's controllable in that nature, in that sense that kind of what you're going to be talking about. You're not just going out and meeting people and having small talk, like you said, Jay, like that. There's a purpose behind it. And I feel like that's how I am a lot. I can manage kind of my introvertedness if I keep that front and center, but if I don't, I can allow it to get out of control very quickly and get kind of scared about things, because it's just so many different, if you really, it's kind of like, so, okay, I've referenced this before. It's one of my favorite kind of theories. That guy, Alan Watts, that I was talking about, he had something that I thought was so genius. He talks about the mental echo chamber, and it's kind of like the idea of, if you think about sound and how it bounces off of things, right? Like we all remember learning when you're younger and you're like, whoa, how did that come from there? I thought it came from there. And you learn that sound waves actually are physical things and they bounce around. And I noticed from playing shows, especially this one venue it was very closed in, like concrete on three sides. So when we would play, we would get the first, if we were doing like 3 sets that night, we would do the first set and get it sounding really good. But then by the second set, all those sound waves are still bouncing around in that venue. There's no place for them to go. So it just kind of keeps going. So when you do that second set of songs, that just adds to it. And now it's bouncing even more, and it becomes very cacophonous because it's all kinds of different sound waves bouncing around. By the time the third set came around, sometimes my mind would play tricks on me. Like I couldn't tell what I was playing, what chords I was playing, because the sound was so off. And so I thought about that whenever I was listening to Alan Watts talk about that idea for your thoughts as well. Like if you have this thought and it stays trapped in your skull and just keeps bouncing around, and then you just keep doing that over and over, how many times do we all do that? Just that inner dialogue. You just keep talking about it to yourself. It just keeps building and building and building. And if you don't quit, you're going to freak out because it's too much, literally bouncing around in your brain. So if you think about it that way, it makes more sense of why you can feel so drained. You know what I mean? Like it's not just because it's in your head doesn't mean it's less real. That makes sense.
Is that where that phrase "circling the drain" comes from?
Probably, yeah.
Interesting. What about you, Jay? Are you a control freak? I feel like you're really not, but don't let me speak. I'm trying to control your answer, so.
It's making him panic right now.
I wouldn't say I'm a control freak. Definitely not any more than I was when I was younger. Like I definitely do recognize though that I like having a certain amount of control over the things that I do. And a lot of it just stems from me. A lot of it is based on experience. Like I've been in positions where I've kind of been the one to, take on the lion's share of a project, or some task I was due. I've been the one, having to make sure, doing all the quality checks to make sure that whatever task we have, whatever project we have is done, not just done on time and done right. Asking the questions, making sure folks are doing what they need to do. And then, getting to a point where it's like, I'd rather do it myself than take a chance and rely on somebody else. Or I'd rather do it myself rather than talk to somebody, because I don't feel like talking. But that's probably the biggest driver. I don't feel like talking to people. So it's much easier to just do all this work, because of course only I know how to do it properly. But it's really just I don't feel like talking and having these staff meetings when I know what has to be done. So that's really kind of what I mean by I'm having a level of control. But I think, as I've gotten older, one, you realize you don't know every fucking thing, and then it does, it takes a little bit of maturity to, get to a place where it's like, you probably should ask for help instead of just leaning on your own understanding. Even if you do know it, even if you do know how to do it every single thing, is that the most efficient way to do it?
Right. Somebody else is probably really good at this.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone they might be better at it,
and being okay with how it turns out. Right? Like
that's exactly it. Being able to trust somebody, or have faith in somebody that they're going to do something, even if it's not the way you would do it. It's just they're going to do it right or do it in a quality manner, and being okay with that. It's not the exact way you would have done, but it's good enough, or it's excellent. Or it's better, and being okay with that. So I definitely had to learn a lot. I'm still learning, still learning how to, being in a position to rely on people. I never wanted to be a person that had to rely on anybody. I rather just do it myself. But, when you take on everything, now you got to do everything. And it doesn't leave it doesn't leave time to do any of the things you want. Like, just
now you got to take all the blame if it fails.
I'm fine with that. If some of the folks are like, I'll be the first one to say, that's my fault. But having to explain to someone that it didn't have to be that way, you could have just asked. I could have just asked Steph to do this. And we gotten done, but because I had to do it myself, now it's later. It's done half-assed. Yeah. So I rather not have to have that conversation. Steph is helping out with doing the clips and doing our episodes and stuff. Like that's a relief to me.
Yeah.
It allows me to focus on other things, my business. So like I'm grateful, and 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You like this?
I do.
Like this
yes.
It's me too. Why do we need to we switched roles in our podcast, and now I do all the episode description. Yeah. And I pick out the clip times, and Jay pumps out the content.
Yeah.
And I was like, for 2 months, I was just like, I don't like actually making content. I just like listening to the episodes, kind of coming up with what clip times would be good. And I like coming up with the description of the episode, but I don't want to be on Instagram like ever. So
Yeah.
the fact that you like it and I like it,
Like
okay,
me,
cool.
it's not so much that I like making content, but I do it. Like I'm constantly in that mode anyway. Like I make content for my business, so it's like, what's 10 more reels during the course of a week? Like what's another carousel or two during the course of a week? Like I'm already in that mode. Whereas Steph doesn't have to get in that mode, because someone's already there. And there are times where I was like, I would release the episode Tuesday afternoon because I'm up on Monday night listening to this episode. I don't feel like doing that shit. I just like,
oh, great.
It's just like, not like after a day of work and then a day of other things, and then it's like you have to schedule time to do this, and it's like I don't have to do it, but I don't want to. But it's like you don't want to feel like you're slacking off to your partner, so you don't say anything. But yes, we've arrived at a great day.
Thank you. Yes. I love it. Our episode double is like working / therapy / this is how we really feel about the podcast session. So thanks for holding space, Marc.
Yeah, safe space.
Absolutely.
On our podcast.
Anytime.
Awesome.
There's no greater honor than to be able to do that, really. What a cool thing to be able to provide. No, but I mean, that's kind of what life is, though, right? It's the whole thing is this weird, gooey path that you're just like kind of fitting over here and wrapping around this thing. And does that work? And no, let me float over here and you meld with this thing. And well, that almost worked, but there's some things out of line. And you just kind of keep bouncing around until you find good spots that fit well for a while, right? It's kind of so we're just big amoebas, basically, just floating around.
That's funny. Big amoeba.
Yeah, but Jay, I agree completely. I wish I would have learned that a long time ago. Just being able to let go of that, because like with all the music projects I've always been the person to do everything, partly because I know it's going to get done, and not everybody does want to do those things. Like you were talking about, that there's things that they don't want to do that I don't mind doing. So it's cool. But also then you have a vested interest in it. And so it's hard to let that control go about certain aspects. And I think I would have been ultimately happier if I could have, released a little bit of that and just go, okay, I'm not going to worry about flyers. Somebody else is going to make the flyers, and however they turn out. I don't care. It's not
hard.
my responsibility.
And it's not even that it comes, at least in my opinion, it's not that it comes from a place of like being selfish, because it's like, we'll share credit. We have no problem sharing credit. It's like, yeah, it was a team thing, whatever. Gay team. But it's like, yeah, it's just hard. And also, we'll take the blame. We don't shirk or run away from shit if it messes up. It's like, yeah, that was on me. Mm-hmm. But it's just like you know how much energy and how much effort you're gonna put into something that means something to you. You can't always say that about the next person. But that big unknown. But it's like at some point you have to have faith, I guess, in your partner or your coworker or your friend or whatever. You have to have faith and just know that they have your back. And it's hard because you have to take that leap. And if you're not, at least for me, you're not that much of a people person, it can be hard. Like it's easier to do it the way I've always done it, as opposed to trying to grow, trying to mature or evolve or develop. But yeah, it's not easy. It's definitely something that I continue to learn, because I still feel kind of that reflex to just take all this on. And it's like, hold on, it's like, it's 7 o'clock, playoffs are on, LeBron has the ball, I'm trying to watch. You do this. It's all you, homie. You got it. Tell me when it's done.
I love that you said the not selfish thing, though, because I think it's a pretty important thing to have stated about this conversation we're talking about, because it doesn't stem from that. It's not a control of I need to be doing this because I want Mark's name on it kind of thing, because
No, I don't want my name on it.
I mean, I don't mind if my name's on it, but like you said, Jay, it's like there was Rick Rubin, who is a producer. He produced all kinds of albums and really kind of became big in the 80s, but he started doing like all these kind of the old underground kind of rap artists, and then moved into rock and kind of made a name for himself. And he's got a book out now called The Creative Act, I think. Can't remember for sure, but one thing he was saying in there is that when you are working with people, though, and I think this is where what we were talking about, Jay, is it's not the control in terms of don't anybody else mess with it. Like if you want to help, that's cool too. And in his book, he was talking about like you want, no matter whose idea it is, the ultimate collaboration is just working toward, you want the best thing to win. You don't care whose it is. Like whatever the best idea is, yeah, let's go with that. And that's, I don't think everybody can necessarily say that, but that's a part of it as well.
I would agree. Like. And I think this last thing for me, and kind of how I said before, I know how hard I'm going to work. I know all the effort I'm going to put into it. You don't know what someone else is going to put into it. I know if I do this and I mess up, it's on me, and I gotta take the shots for it. I gotta own up to it, fess up to it, whatever. I can handle that. I don't know if I can handle handing this off to somebody and they fuck it up. I don't know if I can handle that kind of mess up, because then it's like, well, why did I even believe that he can do this, or why did he do it this way? And it's just all those questions, and it's just like, again, it's not so much that it's coming from a place of selfishness. It's just I know what I can handle, and I don't know if I can handle that. So let me do it this way because it's safe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. I think that's why I found a lot of like joy in teamwork and collaboration with like people that I really vibe with, and like people that just get me and that I get, and that like we just work well together, because it's not me doing all the work and like struggling and feeling like I'm drowning, but it's also it's not me handing off all the work and then just like hoping that they do okay. It's both of us are sort of leaning into our unique skill sets that complement one another, and we're making something fucking awesome. Like, even take this podcast or like my other podcasts, like I couldn't do any of them by myself. But it wouldn't make sense for me to be like, Jay, let's do a podcast. Okay, you talk. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, no, we work
I feel
really
like some
well
people
together.
are, though. Some people do this. Like, I have encountered people who's like,
do they do very well? Probably not.
No. They're like, hey, let's have a band. Okay. Oh, you want me to go do everything? Oh, okay. All right. That's what you meant by let's have a band.
Yeah. Right. It's like I said, I personally don't think I could do a solo podcast. This is interesting being an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I also, like I said, wouldn't have a podcast where the other person was doing it, like talking. Like,
yeah.
It's like, I like the teamwork aspect of it, and it's like sort of the best of both worlds, where I'm not doing everything, but I'm also not doing nothing.
And that's awesome when you can find that. Congratulations, because it's not easy to find though either. So it's good that you found a group of people you can do. I have a question
for you, Steph. So this is something that I know I've kind of experienced. You're totally right. Like, you just find those people that you click with, and it just makes everything easier. It just makes it better. So I guess my question is, how are you able to tell, like, quickly, like, just like that, when either you're going to be able to vibe with this person, or nah, it's not going to be able to do it?
I have a problem, so it kind of goes in line with my resting happy phase, where like I think everybody's a vibe until I realize
Okay.
most people aren't. Um,
Do you know about
so,
do you know about the resting happy
um,
face, Mark, or no? Oh, tell them about the resting happy face.
so I have this
I've seen you
problem.
mention it a couple of times, but I don't really know kind of where that
Yeah.
comes from.
So most people have like resting bitch face.
Yeah, right.
I have the opposite where I like literally can't stop looking happy and I hate it. I've tried everything.
You hate
hates how
it?
happy she looks.
I hate it because like I hate
Oh
how happy
man,
like
don't hate
I'll be
that.
walking down the street and like it's like 20 degrees out, snowing, and like 10 people will like make me take my headphones off to ask for directions. I'm like, I don't fucking know. Stop asking.
But you
I'm
look
sorry that
approachable.
I look happy, but like I'm not. I was happy because I was by myself with my headphones on, and now I'm not happy.
I'm sorry I look happy. No, it's awesome.
I've tried to look more serious. I've tried to look more angry, but then I end up laughing, which makes me look happier. It's a problem. It's a struggle.
That's a good problem to have.
Is it though?
I don't know.
I hate it. I get asked probably 50 times a day for directions, and I don't know where anything is. So I just hope for the best and know that a lot of the times they're gonna end up really angry because they asked a
Yeah.
happy face girl for directions.
That's why you just have to be honest with them. Be like, yeah, I can give you directions. They're gonna be wrong, but give them to you.
I'm always just like I think it's that way, but you might want to check your your phone, your map. It's made for that. I am not.
Everyone tells me to smile.
I definitely I feel like I can, Jay, to your question, like spotting out very quickly who I'm going to be able to vibe with or very quickly into a conversation, or I feel like I naturally want to have a good time with everybody. So
Yeah.
I probably don't recognize it right away sometimes because I'm trying to make it cool and I don't know yet if it's not, but there are definitely when it does jibe though, when it vibes, I feel like I know right. Like even the other day I was thinking about this, that I went to go do allergy testing where they stick you with like, I don't know, 50 different little shots of things to see have y'all ever done allergy tests? It's pretty interesting.
Yes. Oh my God. The bumps.
Yeah.
Yes.
See what raises what you might be allergic to so they can just inform you. For me, I was doing it so I could do allergy shots. I used to do it and I'm starting it up again.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went there, the girl that was helping me, the medical assistant was handling the shot procedure. Like we got along so well right away. First time I've ever met this person, and then you have to sit there for like 30 minutes. You can't go anywhere anyway. So I was just sitting there thinking about it the whole time. Like it's so interesting how if you just trust your intuition, a lot of times it will tell you what's working and what's not. But it's sometimes when our brains think otherwise and we want to force it into a different direction. But I definitely do. I don't know. What about you,
For
Jay?
the most part, yes. Like I'm definitely good at identifying or recognizing someone that I'm not going to be that I'm not going to be able to work with, or even if I'm forced to, that it's not going to be a vibe, or I will be doing the heavy lifting, and I'm fine with that because I don't trust this motherfucker.
Right.
And I've definitely been successful doing that. I will say the times that I've been wrong is typically where I thought someone like wasn't cool or wasn't someone that I'd end up vibing with, and I did.
Yeah.
Versus someone that I thought I would vibe with and I didn't. So and I think
yeah.
I think for me that's mainly because I tend not interacting is kind of my default, so I guess that kind of makes sense for me. So that's just me not giving people a chance. So once I spin the block and like give somebody a chance, like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. So my bad.
Yeah. I agree.
I have prejudged you, and
Same.
I apologize. I should know better. But I didn't. My bad. I'm sorry.
Right.
And now we're cool.
Right. My problem is like if you make me laugh once, I'm like, oh, we're gonna be best friends. We're gonna work so well together. And it's like, he literally just made like a freaking knock joke, and like you're not starting another podcast for laugh.
Oh
yeah. Humor will get you everywhere.
That's true. I don't have a mini gym just by my laugh.
That's my whole life. I feel like.
It'll say it's. I mean,
it's a blessing and a curse.
But it'll save your ass.
Yes,
you get the right person. Totally. Like, I made a mistake, and I just had him laughing. They're like, "Yo, yeah, that was stupid. What was I thinking? My bad."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like when I used to interview for like jobs and stuff, like I knew I was going to get to the next round of interviews and probably get the job if I could make the interviewer laugh within 5-10 minutes. And it's like, it does something to people, like kind of loosens them up. I don't know if I was always qualified for some of the job offers, but I was funny, so whatever.
Yeah, but there's something about, when you do connect that way, humor breaks down barriers. So for a minute you're connecting with that person on a different level, this vulnerable level, but in a good way. So it's, I don't know, I can totally see why that happens. And I see it even since I'm in talent acquisition, when I can tell right away somebody I talk with if they're going to be able to jibe, with the rest of the team, right? Like, are they going to? They might not get the job if they don't have some of the skills, but I know that these people are going to like this person because of XYZ that they did, like that, like a disarming kind of humor thing, right? Like it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. What's it called? Sorry, my husband was like lurking. Stop lurking.
What's up, Sean? How you doing, Sean? Friend of the show.
It's funny because you could be lying. We can't see anything.
I have ADD. Sorry, Mark. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just commenting. I said, like, you could be just acting. We don't know. You could be practicing your acting chops.
I have terrible. I'd be so bad at acting. Oh my goodness.
Acting is hard. It really is. Like, people don't realize how difficult it is.
Right. Yeah, I could imagine memorizing like more than one line. I could never.
I know. That was my problem. I couldn't. My downfalls in musician is I could never remember lyrics. Even my own songs that I wrote, I can't recall words like that. It's weird.
Yeah. I remember you saying that earlier with your brother had like a good memory.
Yeah. I have to rely on people.
For me, I could probably remember, but just like saying them or like feeling like it's hard for me because like I know it's not real. So it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Truly have to step outside of yourself.
There's kind of an element too to like some of the greatest actors are like method actors, and that's like kind of freaky that they can just completely change character and like become a different person. Like that's scary. Like, who are you really? Who is Leonardo DiCaprio? Nobody knows.
It would be hard to be in a relationship with an actor, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I could never.
Like, I don't know if you just put, Yeah, it would be incredibly difficult. You have to have a lot of trust.
He's so insecure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Which one are you?
Exactly. I mean, because
Oh my goodness.
they're able to do that. They're able to kind of split it off a little bit and get into a whole other being for a little while. It's kind of a strange concept if you think about it.
That's really fucking. We need to get an actor on here to ask them what the fuck is what's up. Can we
How dare
trust
you?
you? Are you trustworthy?
Yeah. You
All right,
won't know.
we won't know because you could be acting when you answer
Yeah,
the
exactly.
question.
They get a
I
lie
don't know
detector
if
test.
interrogating
Oh my
the
god!
portfolio
Wow.
will just so it go. But yes. But the people need answers.
Okay.
I agree. The people need answers. We must know. How do you do it?
That's so funny. Well, before we offend anybody else,
Just actors.
just actors. So far, for now.
Yeah.
So I guess I can't believe it's already been over an hour. This is a great conversation, and
Yeah.
we definitely need to do it again. This is
Anytime.
so much fun. We really covered a lot of topics here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait to listen back.
Figure out what the title is. Jay, what's the title?
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Anyway, Mark, before we let you go, is there anything that you want to plug, anything that you want to share, or how can our people find you?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. This has been a blast. Everybody can the easiest way is to follow me on all the Boombox accounts. That's where I'm kind of spend most of my time. It's Boombox Music Talk on pretty much everything except for X, which is just Boombox Talk, and I'm not really on there that much. Just kind of posting stuff every once in a while, but everywhere else, the YouTube page is a great place to kind of dig into because every episode that I do, I also will have all of the music and media that we use throughout the episode. We put in playlists so people can kind of go in and dig in and explore a little bit deeper on the topics that we cover. So that's a good place to go and find it. But yeah, Boombox Music Talk, that's kind of what I'm doing most of the time. I've got my Sad Panda project, which is the music that I write for Score that I'm going to be doing I'm taking it basically and going to just do remixes with other people to have them sing on top. So it's going to be kind of a fun talk about like Control, just going, okay, here, whatever you want to do on top of it, let's see what comes out of it. So it's going to be a blast. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, anytime I would love to come back. This was a blast.
We've done a couple music episodes and they were all so different. So it's really cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark. This was the Stay Introverted podcast. And if you guys absolutely love this episode, be sure to like it, rate it, review it, share it with a friend. Follow us on all the listening platforms and stay tuned for another episode next Tuesday. And in the meantime, stay introverted.
Peace.
Bye.